In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use web services in SSIS 2008. Basically, web services in SSIS, it is used to retrieve XML-based result sets by executing a method on web service. It uses the HTTP connection manager to a specific HTTP endpoint on a website or to a specific visual file on a website. So let's create a new package and name the package as web services. Okay, there are two approaches how you can retrieve the data using web services. One is to use the inbuilt web services task. The other approach is to use the script task. Using the script task, you can write the .NET code to retrieve the data from the web services. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use inbuilt web services task to retrieve the data. The response we get from web services, it will be XML based response. After retrieving the data from web services, we are going to use the data, then we need to parse the data. For that, we may be using the XML tasks. Okay, first let's retrieve the data using web services. So click the toolbox and drag the web services task onto the designer window. Okay, double click that. First, you need to make a connection to web services. Since I don't have any connection, I need to create one. So create a new HTTP connection. In this example, I'm going to use the popular web services.net web service. Okay, so if you go to their main page, webservices.net, you will see plenty of web services. You can use any one of them to retrieve the data using the web services. Basically, you can play with this website. So I'm going to use a weather data web service. Okay, weather forecast. What this web service is going to do is, if you pass the zip code, it will give the response back to us, the weather information for next 5 days. As you can see, I entered 30350 zip code, which is Atlanta, Georgia. It has given Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all next 5 days, the weather information about next 5 days. Okay, so we should be getting the same information when we invoke this method if we use this web service from SSIS. Okay, so here they have given a service description file, which is a visual file. Okay, click that and you will see what are the various information that we can specify in the visual file. Okay, so this is the method get weather by zip code. This is the method that we should be using, and we need to pass the value for this parameter, and which is a string. Okay, and it returns this information. Okay, the day, weather image, maximum temperature, minimum temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. Okay, so visual file exposes the methods and parameters that we need to specify and how it returns the data, and it will return the data in the form of XML file. So we should collect that XML response, and we can use that XML response. We can pass that XML file and store it into a file or table or whatever it is. Okay, so copy this URL and paste it over here, and we are going to access the web services using visual file, not to HTTP endpoint. Okay, so in that case we should be specifying WSDL here. Okay, click the test connection and our test connection is succeeded. And for the secure URLs, we need to use the credentials. Okay, but this is a public website where we don't need any credentials to access these web services. So, and no proxy. So this should work fine. Okay, now we have made the HTTP connection to the weather forecast web services. Okay, so and we need the WSDL file. So one thing is, if you have the WSDL file locally, we can use that, or we can download the WSDL file from their website. Okay, specify a path and say I want to download the WSDL file. It will download. Okay, for example, I'm going to download the WSDL file. I have created a folder for this package, so I'm going to use this path to download the WSDL file. Say I'll say web services.wsdl. Okay, since I'm going to download the WSDL file, I need to say override the WSDL file, otherwise it's not going to override. Since I don't have any file right now, doesn't matter for the first time, but for the next time you need to say true. Okay, to download the updated WSDL file. So when I say click download WSDL file, it will download the WSDL file from that website. Okay, it downloaded the WSDL file successfully, and if you go and see, you see the WSDL file here. Okay, double click the WSDL file, you will see the same information that you saw here. Okay, so we are going to use get weather by zip code method, and for that we need to pass the zip code, which is a string, and it will return the response. These are the response it will return. Okay, now click input tab, and this is the service you are going to use, weather forecast. Okay, click that service and select the method which we are going to use. We are going to use get weather by zip code. We need to pass the zip code, so type in the zip code here. We can also use a variable. If we have a variable, then we can use that variable, but we need to pass, we need to assign value to a variable. Okay, yeah, we will define that. Click output, and how we are going to collect the output data from the web services. We can specify file connection. So in this case, we are going to store the XML response in a file. So I'm going to store the XML response in the same directory where I download the WSDL file. Alright, I am done with the first task, which is web services task. Now when I say execute this task, it will make a connection to the web services, and it will pass 30350 zip code and retrieve the response. As you can see here, this is the response we got. Okay, fine. As I told you earlier, that we can pass the variable to the input tab, to the method. Okay, for that we need to specify the variables. So let us create a variable here, variable zip code. Specify string and say 30350. Okay, go to this input tab here and specify the variable. So instead of hard coding the zip code here, we can specify a variable. So whatever the value in the variable, it's going to use that, and it's going to send that variable value to the method. Okay, so save it, and if you run it, it's going to do the same thing. Okay, package ran successfully, and this is the response file, and as you can see, response file is updated. So same response that we got here last time. Okay, now we retrieved the data using the web services. Now we are going to load the data into a table. For that we need to specify the data flow task. So click the toolbox, drag the data flow task here, connect it. So in this data flow task, the source for this data flow task is XML file. That's XML file we retrieved from the web services. Okay, and output will be a table. So define the XML source as source connection and OLEDB destination as a destination connection. Okay, so for this source, specify the input file. That's the file we retrieved just before from the web services. So this is the XML file. Okay, I don't have the inline schema defined in the XML file, so I can generate an XSD file from here, or if I have the XSD file, I can type that XSD location. Okay, since I don't have XSD file, I wanted to create a generate XSD file. So SSIS provides that option, which is very good. So save the XSD in the same directory, which is fine. SSIS has a peculiar problem. If the XML file contains multiple namespaces, then it cannot generate the XSD file. Okay, so what I'm talking about is, if you open the XML file that we retrieved from the web services, you see there are this is one namespace and this is another namespace. Okay, since it has got multiple namespaces, it cannot generate the XSD file. So what we need to do, either we can manually remove these namespaces, okay, so remove this, remove that, remove that, remove that. So I am manually removing all the XML the namespaces here. Okay, so now this file doesn't contain any namespace. Save it. Now if you say generate XSD, I hope it should generate. See, it generated now. This is the XSD file that it generated. Okay, so if you're automating this task, okay, but it's not possible to manually remove the namespaces and use the file. Okay, if you are using this package in the production, you need to write a XSLT transformation task in between web services task and data flow task to strip out the namespaces. Okay, so let's cancel out from here. We need to create XSLT task here, which will strip out the multiple namespaces from the XML file that we retrieve from the web services, and that XML file we can use it here to load it into the table. Okay, so click the toolbox, select the XML task. So this is the XSLT transformation task. So specify XSLT. XSLT basically the XSLT task, what it does, it transforms the XML file into another XML file. specify the input XML file here. Okay, so the file connection, this will be our input file. And we wanted to save the operation result. Yes, the transformed XML file, we wanted to save it. So say true. Okay, this is the output file. I'm going to use the same file. I'm going to strip out the namespaces from this location and save the file into the same location. That means I'm overwriting the output file. Overwrite the destination. Yes. Okay, here I need to specify the XSL file, the transformation, the script file. This is the XSL file that I written to strip out the multiple namespaces in the XML file. So we can use this XSL file here. Instead of saying direct input, say the file connection and specify the file, the XSL file path. So we need to make a new connection, and which will be existing file. So select that XSL file. Yes, that's pretty much it. Say OK, save it. If I run the first task, right click on the first task and say execute, it will retrieve the data from the weather data from the web services. Okay, so as you can see, this is the file that we just retrieved. Okay, now the second task in this package, which will transform, as you can see, the retrieved XML file contains the multiple namespaces. Okay, now if I run the second task, the XSLT transformation task, this will remove the multiple namespaces in that file. Okay, it removed. You can go and verify that. So it removed the multiple namespaces, and the output, the transformed file, it overwritten the input file, which is the same file. So right click on that file and see there are no namespaces here. Okay, which is fine. Now give the connection to the data flow task. Now you go to the data flow task and say select that XML file, the transformed XML file. Now you say generate XST, it will generate. I'm going to save the XST file in this location, which is fine. Overwrite it because last time we created the XST file. So now if you say generate XST file, it will generate because we stripped out the multiple namespaces. Go to the columns. Okay, the XST file that SSIS generates, it has got a slight problem. We need to fix that. Okay, this is a warning message. We can just say okay because the data we retrieved, it's not going to contain more than 50 bytes. All it is saying, you didn't define the maximum length for the variables, for the parameters in the XST file. I'm going to assume 255, and if you are expecting more than 255, it's going to truncate. But in our case, we're not going to retrieve more than 50 or 60, so which is fine. I can say okay and I can proceed. But the problem I told you that with the XST file that SSIS generated, let's take a look at that. This is the XST file that SSIS generated. Okay, open that XST file. The maximum temperature, these are the output parameters from the XML response. The SSIS, when we click the generate XSD from the SSIS task, okay, it generates XSD file, right? It looks at the XML file, whatever the contents in the XML file, it assumes certain values and creates the XSD file. Okay, Actually this is supposed to be string. It should be like this. Okay, then why it created unsigned byte? The reason is in the XML file the data is 38, 14, 3, which are numeric value. So the SSIS, the generate XSLT task, it assumed that the XML response, this parameter will contain the numeric values. So it created unsigned byte type for those parameters, but actually those are string values. How can we say that? Go and open the WSDL file, which is WSDL file, and this is the file where it specifies the output response specification, the parameter specification. It says the web service is going to return the XML response data in the string format. You can see here the parameters, those are all string parameters. So we needed to specify the string here. Okay, it is supposed to be like this. Still we need to make some minor tweaks. Okay, save the XSLT file, go here, and we have two structures. As you can see, the XML response, one layout is details and another structure is the weather data. So this is what we see here, the two structures. Okay, so we wanted to extract that information from the weather data nodes, weather data structure, and load it into the table. Okay, so when we say that, we got all the parameters in that particular node. So I don't want details ID here, so I just remove it and say okay. So these are the these are the parameters that it passes to this OLEDB destination. So specify the structure that we need to load. Double click. Since we don't have any connection, make a new connection to the database, and this is the server name and test is the database name. I'm going to create a new table to store the weather information. Okay, I just created that. Yeah, if you refresh, you'll see that. Click mappings. So it is automatically mapped, so which is fine. Now the package is done. So we completed the 3 tasks. This task will retrieve the data from web services. This will transform, which will remove the multiple namespaces in XML file, and this task will take the data from XML file and load it into the table, which is this table. Okay, right now there is nothing because we just created from the SSIS. Okay, so if I run this package now, right now it is retrieving from web services. Okay, the package is done. Now if we go and take a look at this table again, execute, you will see the 7 records. Okay, so in this video we retrieved the data from web services using the inbuilt web services task, and after that we used the XSLT transformation and data flow task to load the XML response that we retrieved into a table. Okay, in the next video we'll achieve the same result, but by using the script task. We'll replace these two tasks using a script task wherein we write a C# code to retrieve the data from the web services and load it into the table.